Lena sat quietly on the airplane, her hands resting on the notebook in her lap. The hum of the engines was constant, comforting, and rhythmic, and she could feel the gentle vibration under her feet. She glanced out the window at the clouds below. They looked like soft white blankets stretching as far as the eye could see. The sun was beginning to rise, casting a warm glow across the horizon. Most of the passengers around her were sleeping or quietly reading, lost in their own thoughts. Lena, however, was awake and alert, as she often was. Her mind never seemed to stop moving, always searching, always thinking. She opened her notebook and began sketching a new design for a drone she had been imagining for months. Her pencil moved quickly across the paper, leaving careful lines and curves that made the shape almost seem alive. She paused for a moment to think, tapping the pencil against her chin. She loved airplanes and all flying machines, but drones fascinated her more. They were small, fast, and precise, yet capable of incredible things with the right guidance. Lena imagined what it would be like to send them into space or use them to explore planets that humans could not yet visit. The flight attendants moved quietly up and down the aisles, offering drinks and snacks. Lena smiled at a little boy who waved at her. She waved back, then returned to her sketches. The boy's excitement reminded her why she loved to dream. Even adults could be too serious sometimes, but children always reminded the world to imagine more. Suddenly, the plane shivered slightly, a gentle but unusual vibration that made Lena pause. She glanced at her small tablet where she had been running a simple program to simulate drone flight patterns. To her surprise, she noticed several unusual blips moving quickly across the radar screen. They were not in any formation she recognized. They moved too fast and too smoothly to be normal airplanes. Lena frowned. Her curiosity grew. She tapped on her tablet, zooming in on the blips. The screen showed them clearly now, moving in perfect coordination, almost like they were alive. Her heart began to race a little. She had studied many kinds of aircraft, but nothing like this had ever appeared in her research. The movements were too precise, almost too intelligent. Lena's mind raced through possibilities. Were they experimental military drones? Some new foreign technology? Or something else entirely? The plane rocked slightly again as the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing some unexpected turbulence. Please remain seated with your seat belts fastened. Thank you." The passengers murmured quietly and adjusted their seats. Lena nodded politely and kept her eyes on the screen. Something was not right. Turbulence could not cause the precise, rapid movements she was seeing. Her curiosity grew stronger. She opened a more advanced program on her tablet, connecting it to her personal sensors. Lena had designed small portable sensors that could detect unusual electromagnetic activity. It was a hobby of hers that often led to new ideas for her drone projects. She placed the sensor discreetly near the window, careful not to disturb the people around her. The screen began to display readings that made her eyes widen. The objects were not only moving with unusual precision, but also seemed to emit a signal she had never encountered before. She leaned back in her seat and took a deep breath. The hum of the engines was comforting, but her mind was racing. Lena loved challenges. She loved puzzles, and this was unlike anything she had ever faced. For the first time in her life, she felt a thrill of real danger, even from inside a commercial airplane. She quietly whispered to herself, "This is more than turbulence." Around her, the cabin remained calm. A woman a few rows ahead was reading a magazine, oblivious to the strange activity outside the plane. A man was typing on his laptop, his headphones blocking the sound of the engines. Lena smiled faintly. Most people never noticed the small mysteries that happened in the sky above them. They trusted that someone else was watching. Someone else was prepared. Lena wondered if anyone else was noticing the signal she saw. She tapped a few more keys and activated a tracking algorithm she had designed. The program highlighted the fastest moving blip on the screen, showing its trajectory. Her eyes widened as she realized the blips were moving toward a military training area near the mountains below. Lena felt a shiver run down her spine. Military zones were not supposed to be so easily penetrated, and yet these objects moved as if they had no limits. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alert on her tablet. The system she had built detected interference in the air. The objects were not only fast but were actively interacting with the electromagnetic field around the airplane. Lena's pulse quickened. She was looking at technology that humans could not yet fully understand. Her mind raced through possibilities. Could this be a test, or was it something more dangerous? As she watched, one of the blips made a sudden sharp turn. Lena's heart skipped a beat. The movement was aggressive, almost like it was aware of her monitoring it. She realized then that she could not remain silent. She needed to understand these objects better, but she also needed to remain calm. Panic would do nothing. She took a deep breath and focused. The plane shook again, stronger this time. Passengers murmured, some gripping the armrests. Lena kept her eyes on the screen. She noted that the objects were now splitting into smaller groups, surrounding an area where two small F-16 jets were flying. The jets seemed to be struggling to maintain formation. Lena's mind worked quickly, calculating possible paths and strategies the pilots might take. She realized she was seeing an unfolding aerial encounter, one that could end badly if the pilots were not careful. She tried to send a discreet signal to the military, using an encrypted channel she had experimented with during her drone projects. It was risky, but she had no choice. Her data could help the pilots. She sent the coordinates of the unusual blips, marking the fastest and most aggressive ones. She felt a quiet thrill. For the first time, she was part of something much larger than herself. The turbulence seemed to grow stronger, and passengers looked around nervously. Lena smiled faintly to herself. They thought it was ordinary turbulence. They did not know that above the clouds a real battle was unfolding, one that required precision, skill, and quick thinking. Lena's fingers moved over the tablet, tracking the object's speed and predicting their next movements. Her calculations showed that the jets were at risk unless they could anticipate the blip's attacks. She leaned closer to the screen. The blips were moving faster now, clearly targeting the jets. One of the F-16s made a sharp maneuver to avoid an approaching object. Lena's heart raced. She could feel the danger even from inside her plane. She whispered quietly, "Hold steady. You can do this." Her words were not heard by anyone else, but she felt a strange connection with the pilots above. Somehow she understood their situation better than anyone else on the plane. The plane shook once more, slightly less violently, and the captain's voice came over the intercom again. "We are adjusting our altitude to avoid the turbulence. Please remain seated." Lena nodded, her attention never leaving the tablet. She was focused entirely on the unfolding events. She realized that she might be the only person able to provide real-time guidance to the pilots. Minutes passed, each one feeling like an hour. Lena monitored every movement, calculating speeds, predicting maneuvers. The jets seemed to struggle, but they were not alone. Lena realized that the pilots' training and skill were remarkable, but even the best training might not be enough against these mysterious objects. She felt a surge of determination. Humans were strong, clever, and adaptable. She would find a way to help them. As the sun climbed higher, the clouds below began to part slightly, revealing the mountains beneath. Lena could see the vast training area and the jets maneuvering between peaks. She noted the objects' formations, identifying weak points and potential escape paths for the pilots. Her heart raced with every movement. The situation was dangerous, but she knew humans had an advantage: creativity, intuition, and courage. She smiled quietly to herself. For the first time, Lena felt fully alive. The quiet flight that had seemed so ordinary had become extraordinary. She was no longer just a passenger. She was part of the sky, part of the battle unfolding above the mountains, and part of something that tested human skill in ways she had only imagined in her sketches. The hum of the engines, the sunlight on the clouds, and the gentle rocking of the plane were now a backdrop to something much greater. Lena leaned back in her seat for a moment, taking a deep breath. The journey had changed in ways no one else could see. She glanced around at the passengers, all of them unaware, all of them part of a world that did not yet understand the challenges above. She felt a quiet pride. Humans were capable of incredible things, and she was witnessing it firsthand. Her focus returned to the tablet. The blips moved faster, splitting into new patterns. Lena's calculations showed a critical moment approaching. She needed to prepare for what was coming next. The F-16 jets would need help, and she might be the only one able to provide it. She tapped the last few keys on her tablet, sending the most precise coordinates she could. The moment was tense, quiet, and alive with possibility. The sky above the mountains was wide and clear, the sunlight glinting off the peaks below. Two F-16 jets streaked through the air, their engines roaring as they flew in tight formation. Pilots Mark and Seema had been on routine training exercises, but something unusual caught their eyes. A cluster of small, fast-moving objects approached from the horizon. At first they looked like birds or experimental drones, but as the jets drew closer, the pilots realized these were unlike anything they had seen. "Mark, do you see that?" Seema called over the radio, her voice calm but tense. Her fingers moved over the controls instinctively. "Those are not normal drones." Mark's jaw tightened. "I see them. They are moving too fast and the formation is too precise. Something is wrong." He adjusted the throttle and tried to approach carefully, but the objects shifted positions as if they were aware of the jets. High above them, Lena sat quietly on the airplane, her tablet glowing softly on her lap. She had been tracking the objects for minutes now, analyzing their patterns and trying to anticipate their movements. Her calculations showed the drones accelerating far faster than normal human-made machines. She felt a rush of concern but also a strange excitement. The F-16 jets moved closer to the objects and suddenly, one of the small blips darted directly toward Seema's jet. She reacted instinctively, banking sharply to avoid it. The jet shook violently under the force of her maneuver. "Mark, they are attacking," she said, her voice sharper now. "I am trying to evade, but there are too many of them." Mark's eyes widened as he saw another object speeding toward him. He pushed his jet to the limits, but the object matched every move, almost as if it could anticipate his actions. His heart pounded. This was not a normal exercise or a training drill. Something dangerous was happening and both pilots knew it. Back on the airplane, Lena's fingers flew over her tablet. She opened a communication channel she had designed for emergencies, hoping the military base could receive it. The screen lit up with encrypted signals. She sent coordinates, velocities, and projected paths of the objects. Her mind raced as she calculated every possible outcome. She realized the jets might not survive without some kind of help. Suddenly, one of the drones launched a sudden strike toward Seema's jet. She barely avoided it, and her jet spun slightly in the turbulence it created. Lena's heart raced. She whispered quietly to herself, "Hold steady, you can do this." She had no idea if the pilots could hear her, but she felt a strange connection to them. Her knowledge of flight and aerial patterns allowed her to predict their next moves. The jets attempted to regroup, but the drones were relentless. They moved in coordinated patterns, splitting into smaller groups and attacking from different angles. The pilots were skilled, but even skill was being tested against something far beyond ordinary machines. Seema's hands were steady, but tension was clear in her posture. She knew every second counted. Mark glanced at his instruments and saw interference patterns he had never seen before. The drones were emitting signals that affected his navigation systems. "Seema, they are interfering with our instruments," he shouted. "We need backup now." The jets maneuvered desperately. One object zipped past Mark's wingtip, causing a sudden jolt that shook him in his seat. He pulled hard on the controls and avoided disaster by inches. Adrenaline surged through him, but he remained focused. Both pilots were highly trained, but this challenge was like nothing they had ever faced. Meanwhile, Lena continued analyzing every move of the drones. Her tablet displayed live readings of their speed, acceleration, and trajectory. She could see patterns, weaknesses, and possible escape routes for the pilots. She realized the drones' movements were fast, precise, and yet slightly predictable. Humans had something machines did not have: intuition. With quick calculations, she predicted the next likely strike. She tapped her tablet, sending the new data to the military's communication system. A confirmation beep showed the data had been received. Lena's heart leapt. She might be able to guide the pilots to safety. The danger was immense, but human skill, combined with her calculations, might turn the tide. High above, the drones made another aggressive maneuver, circling the F-16 jets like predators. Seema gritted her teeth and adjusted her jet, narrowly avoiding a collision. She glanced at Mark. "We can't handle this alone. We need reinforcement." Mark nodded. "Agreed. We hold position and wait for backup." His voice was calm but tense. Both pilots understood the situation clearly. The drones were fast, intelligent, and unrelenting. They could not fight alone. Lena noticed a faint signal in the pattern of the drones. They were converging toward the mountains, perhaps thinking the jets would be trapped. She calculated an intercept path that could lead the jets to a safer zone. She sent the path through her tablet, praying it would reach the pilots in time. The drone's speed increased suddenly, as if they had detected the incoming data. They split into multiple groups, targeting both jets from different directions. Seema's jet banked sharply, narrowly avoiding one strike. Her hands were steady, her eyes focused. She could feel the power and danger of the situation pressing down, but she refused to give in. Mark watched a drone approaching rapidly. He had to act fast. He dove toward a narrow valley, hoping to use the mountains for cover. The object followed, moving unnervingly quickly. Lena's tablet beeped again. She had calculated a path through the valley that offered temporary safety. Mark adjusted his course slightly, trusting instinct and luck. The drone passed over the ridge but did not follow into the valley. Seema followed closely behind Mark. She adjusted her throttle, keeping her distance from the terrain and the drones. Both pilots realized the mountains offered temporary shelter, but they needed more than cover. They needed reinforcements to survive. Lena's heart pounded. She could see the solution forming. The jets were skilled, but the drones were too many. They needed heavy support, something stronger and better armed. She recalled military strategy manuals and combined them with her own calculations. She began sending coordinates of safe zones and potential weak points in the drones' formations. Her mind worked faster than ever. Minutes passed, each second feeling like an eternity. The F-16 jets stayed alert, navigating the valley while avoiding the drones. The commercial plane Lena was on seemed calm in contrast, but she felt every move, every turn, every calculation pressing against her mind. Humans were pushed to the edge, but they had resilience. They had courage. She felt confident that the pilots could survive with her guidance. Suddenly, one drone broke formation and dove directly toward the valley. Mark reacted instantly, pulling hard on the controls. His jet shook violently, but he avoided collision. The maneuver required every ounce of skill he had. Seema followed, adjusting carefully. Lena's calculations had predicted this exact strike. She felt a quiet surge of relief. Her predictions had worked. The drones regrouped, their coordination almost flawless. Lena's mind raced again. She needed to do more. She pulled up a simulation on her tablet, running hundreds of scenarios in seconds. She calculated angles, speed, and the best possible defense for the pilots. She sent the simulation data through encrypted channels, hoping the military would act quickly. Mark and Seema continued to navigate the drone's attacks. Each movement was precise, every adjustment critical. The sky was alive with speed, precision, and danger. Lena's mind worked in tandem with the pilot's skill. Together, though separated by distance, they formed an invisible connection, a network of knowledge, intuition, and courage. The sun climbed higher, illuminating the mountains below. The F-16 jets were still in danger, but the first stage of survival had passed. The pilots knew they needed heavy support, and Lena's guidance was key. She had provided the calculations and predicted the attacks. She had connected human skill with technology, showing the power of ingenuity. Lena leaned back in her seat briefly, catching her breath. She realized the quiet flight had ended. The real test had begun. The jets had survived the first attack, but something stronger would come. She needed to prepare for what was next, to ensure that humans remained in control of the sky. Her tablet beeped again. New signals appeared on the screen. The drones were regrouping, preparing for the next attack. Lena's mind worked quickly. She calculated new trajectories, safe zones, and potential interventions. She sent updated data to the military system. The pilots above would receive the information soon. Mark and Seema were ready. They adjusted their jets, taking defensive positions in the sky. Their training, skill, and courage were evident in every movement. They were humans facing machines that seemed almost alive, but they would not give in. Lena's calculations gave them hope, but their skill gave them survival. The sky above the mountains was tense and alive. The drones were fast, dangerous, and precise. The F-16 pilots were determined, skilled, and courageous. Lena, quietly sitting on the commercial plane, was the invisible hand guiding them. Humans were facing a test unlike any before, and every mind, every calculation, and every skill mattered. For Lena, the quiet flight had become a battlefield of intellect, intuition, and courage. For Mark and Seema, the sky was alive with danger, but also with hope. Together, humans were proving that skill, bravery, and quick thinking could challenge even the most advanced machines. The sky above the mountains had grown tense, almost electric. Lena's fingers moved rapidly over her tablet, sending real-time calculations to the military system. Her small sensors on the airplane's window captured every unusual movement of the drones, every electromagnetic signal, and every potential trajectory. She felt a mixture of fear and excitement. This was no longer a simple observation. The jets were in real danger, and she held the key to guiding them safely through the sky. High above the mountains, the two F-16 jets, piloted by Mark and Seema, were maneuvering desperately. The drones had regrouped and were now moving with even more precision. One after another, the small craft darted through the sky like predators, circling the jets and forcing them into constant evasive maneuvers. Seema's hands were steady on the controls, but her jaw was tense. Every second counted. Every mistake could cost her life or Mark's. "Mark, I don't know how much longer we can hold them off," Seema said through the radio. Her voice was calm but carried a weight of urgency. "They are learning our moves. Every maneuver we try, they adapt instantly." Mark gritted his teeth and adjusted his course. "I know, keep steady. We've handled difficult situations before. We just need to buy time until help arrives." He glanced at his instruments, noticing interference from the drone's signals. The jet's navigation systems were flickering, but Mark relied on his instincts as much as his instruments. Inside the airplane, Lena watched closely. Her calculations indicated the drones were indeed adapting to the jet's movements. She had anticipated some of it, but the drones were faster and smarter than she had first realized. Her mind raced. Humans had creativity, intuition, and the ability to improvise, and she knew the pilots had these qualities in abundance. She needed to connect those qualities to her calculations. Lena activated a special communication channel she had secretly prepared for emergencies. The system was designed to transmit encrypted data to military satellites. It was risky, but she had no choice. If the pilots were to survive, they needed more than their training. They needed her guidance, even if it was indirect. "Coordinates are being sent," she whispered to herself. "Follow them. Trust them." Above the peaks, a drone dove directly at Seema's jet. Seema reacted instantly, pulling up sharply. The jet shook violently under the maneuver. Lena's tablet beeped as she calculated a new trajectory for the pilot. She sent it through the channel, marking safe zones and predicting the drone's next attacks. Mark received the updated path and immediately adjusted his course. The drones shifted in response, splitting into smaller groups to corner the jets. The battle had become a deadly game of cat and mouse. The mountains offered cover, but only temporarily. Each maneuver required skill, courage, and split-second decisions. Seema's jet banked to avoid an aggressive strike. "Mark, they are surrounding us. We can't hold them off much longer," she said. Her voice was steady, but the tension was clear. Mark's eyes narrowed. "We hold, we survive. Lena's data will guide us." The jets pressed forward, using the valleys to their advantage. Lena's calculations predicted which areas the drones could not follow easily. She marked these paths on her tablet, hoping the pilots could use them to evade the most dangerous strikes. Her heart raced as she watched the drones react to the jets' movements. They were fast, aggressive, and relentless. But Lena was confident humans had an advantage machines did not: intuition and creativity. Suddenly, a drone struck closer than before, causing Seema's jet to jerk violently. She regained control, but her heart pounded. She realized that these were not ordinary machines. They were intelligent, adaptive, and relentless. She had to think quickly, rely on training, and trust the guidance she hoped was coming. Inside the airplane, Lena saw the movement clearly on her tablet. She recalculated the next likely attack points. She sent updated paths, speed adjustments, and safe zones. Each signal she sent could mean the difference between survival and disaster. Her fingers moved quickly, almost instinctively. She had spent years studying flight, drones, and signals, but now every lesson mattered. The drones began to shift patterns again, moving in synchronized formations to corner the jets. Mark and Seema realized they could no longer outrun them. The F-16s were fast, but the drones were faster and more agile. Mark adjusted his throttle, banking sharply to create distance. Seema followed his lead, weaving through the narrow valleys. Lena's calculations predicted the paths perfectly, giving the pilots the best chance at survival. Minutes stretched like hours. The jets dodged strike after strike. Lena's mind raced, analyzing every move, every signal. She realized that if the pilots could hold out a little longer, reinforcements could arrive. Her calculations indicated that a larger, more powerful aircraft would have the ability to handle the drones directly. The F-16s alone could not win this battle, but teamwork and strategy could give them a chance. Suddenly, a drone split from the main group and targeted Mark's jet directly. Mark reacted instantly, pulling up sharply. His jet shook violently as the drone passed. He exhaled slowly, keeping his focus. Each attack required precision, skill, and nerves of steel. Seema watched Mark's maneuver, adjusting her flight path to support him while avoiding the drones herself. Lena's mind worked faster than ever. She calculated where the drones were weakest, which areas they could not turn quickly, and which paths the jets could use to evade strikes. She sent the updated data to the military, hoping they could respond in time. Every calculation, every signal mattered. The drones regrouped and attacked again, now more aggressively than before. Seema's jet tilted sharply to the left to avoid a strike. The wind roared past her face as she maneuvered the aircraft expertly. She felt the adrenaline pumping through her veins. This was a battle unlike any she had experienced. The drones were relentless, but she trusted in her training, instincts, and the guidance coming from Lena. Mark noticed a weak point in the drone's formation. "Seema, follow my lead. We can push through here," he called. Both jets adjusted their course. Lena recalculated rapidly and confirmed the path was viable. She sent the updated signals to ensure the pilots had the best chance of success. The jets pressed forward, using the weak point to gain distance from the drones. The drones shifted, trying to close in, but the pilot's skill and Lena's calculations kept them one step ahead. Each second was tense, each maneuver critical. The mountains below offered temporary cover, but the danger remained. Lena felt her pulse quicken as she watched the unfolding aerial battle. Seema banked sharply, narrowly avoiding a collision with the drones. "Mark, we need reinforcements now," she said. Her voice was calm but urgent. Mark nodded. "Agreed. We hold our position and wait for backup." Inside the airplane, Lena prepared for the next phase. She knew reinforcements were needed, something more powerful than F-16 jets. She began sending calculated signals indicating where a heavy aircraft could engage the drones effectively. She analyzed weak points, trajectories, and safe zones. Her calculations showed the pilot's skill combined with a more powerful machine could turn the battle in humanity's favor. Minutes passed in tense silence, punctuated by the roar of the F-16 engines and the rapid movements of the drones. Lena continued sending updated calculations, guiding the pilots through the increasingly dangerous sky. Every signal mattered. Every calculation could save lives. She felt a deep connection to Mark and Seema, even though they did not know her name or location. Suddenly, one of the drones fired a high-speed strike towards Seema's jet. She pulled up sharply, her jet tilting violently. Mark adjusted his flight path to support her. Lena's calculations had predicted this strike perfectly. She sent updated coordinates and safe paths instantly. Her mind was fully focused, every second critical. The F-16s maneuvered expertly, using valleys and ridges to their advantage. The drones adapted, but the pilot's skill and Lena's calculations kept them alive. The sky was alive with motion, danger, and intelligence. The battle was far from over, but the pilots had survived the first major assault. Lena leaned back slightly, catching her breath. She knew the next phase would be even more intense. Reinforcements were on their way, but the pilots had to hold their positions until help arrived. Every decision, every calculation, and every maneuver mattered. Humans had courage, skill, and creativity, and now Lena's knowledge was a crucial part of the fight. Mark and Seema adjusted their jets, preparing for the next attack. They trusted their training, instincts, and the guidance coming from Lena. The drones were fast, precise, and intelligent, but humans had something machines could not match: intuition, creativity, and determination. Lena watched the screen, analyzing the drone's movements. She prepared new calculations, identifying potential weak points and safe zones. She sent signals to ensure the pilots had the best possible guidance. She felt a quiet determination. Humans could survive, humans could adapt, and humans could overcome. The sky above the mountains was tense and alive with danger. The drones were relentless, but the F-16 pilots were determined and skilled. Lena's calculations provided the guidance they needed. Together, humans were proving their resilience, intelligence, and courage against a formidable enemy. The first warning had passed, but the real battle was about to begin. Lena knew that reinforcements would arrive soon, and the pilots had to hold their positions. The sky above the mountains had become a battlefield. The drones, fast and precise, were relentless, circling the F-16 jets and testing every maneuver the pilots made. Mark and Seema were tired but focused. Their hands moved over the controls with skill and determination, dodging attacks and using the valleys below for temporary cover. Every second was a test of skill, courage, and quick thinking. Inside the commercial plane, Lena's heart pounded as she monitored the drone's movements. She knew that the F-16s could survive for a while, but the drones were too many and too advanced to fight alone. Her calculations showed that the jets were reaching the limits of their abilities. Reinforcements were needed, something heavier and more powerful than the F-16s, something capable of turning the battle in humanity's favor. A sudden vibration ran through the air as the distant roar of a larger engine approached. Lena's eyes widened as she saw a new aircraft appear on her tablet. It was an A-10, a warplane designed for heavy combat. Its arrival was a turning point. The A-10's engines roared, shaking the clouds as it streaked through the sky toward the drones. Lena felt a surge of hope. Humans had the advantage of courage, skill, and determination, and now the heavy fighter would bring firepower to match the threat. Mark and Seema noticed the A-10 approaching. Relief washed over them, but there was no time to relax. The drones were still fast and aggressive, and their formations were unpredictable. The A-10 moved into position, ready to engage the drones directly. Its pilot, skilled and calm, scanned the sky, identifying the most dangerous targets. Lena's calculations guided the A-10, sending precise coordinates and predicted paths to maximize its effectiveness. The first wave of drones attacked the A-10 immediately, attempting to overwhelm the new threat. The A-10 responded with powerful maneuvers, its heavy armor allowing it to withstand near misses that would have damaged the F-16s. Lena watched closely, sending continuous updates to guide the pilot toward weak points in the drone's formation. Mark and Seema adjusted their jets, using the distraction provided by the A-10 to gain distance and reorganize. The drones shifted, focusing on the heavy fighter, but Lena's guidance ensured the A-10 remained one step ahead. The pilot's skill combined with Lena's calculations made a powerful team. The drones were fast and intelligent, but humans had strategy, intuition, and determination. Suddenly, one drone moved rapidly toward Seema's jet, attempting a dangerous strike. Seema reacted instantly, banking sharply to avoid the attack. The A-10 pilot noticed the movement and fired precise countermeasures, intercepting the drone before it could reach her. Lena's calculations had predicted the strike, and her signals guided the A-10 to the correct position. The pilots above the mountains were working in perfect coordination, even without seeing each other directly. Mark adjusted his course to follow Seema. The drones attempted to split the jets apart, but the pilot's skill and Lena's guidance kept them close. The A-10 moved aggressively through the sky, its heavy guns targeting clusters of drones. Explosions erupted around the attackers, and some drones were destroyed instantly. The sound of engines, gunfire, and distant explosions filled the sky, creating a chaotic but controlled battlefield. Lena's fingers moved quickly over her tablet, recalculating attack paths, predicting drone maneuvers, and sending updates to the A-10 pilot. Every strike, every movement had to be precise. One mistake could allow the drones to regroup and overwhelm the jets. Lena's calculations were vital, connecting human skill with technology to maximize effectiveness against the enemy. The drones adjusted their tactics, moving in tighter formations and attacking from multiple angles. Mark and Seema banked sharply, dodging several attacks. The A-10 fired again, destroying a small cluster of drones with controlled precision. Lena's guidance ensured the heavy fighter targeted the most dangerous threats while keeping a clear path for the jets. Minutes passed like hours. The pilots remained focused, their skill tested against fast, intelligent machines. Lena's calculations were constant, updating trajectories, velocities, and predicted attacks. The sky was alive with danger, strategy, and courage. Every movement mattered. Humans were being tested, and every skill, calculation, and decision could determine survival. A drone moved toward Mark's jet at high speed. He pulled up sharply, narrowly avoiding a collision. The A-10 pilot fired at the drone, destroying it instantly. Lena's calculations had predicted the drone's path perfectly. Relief washed over her briefly, but there was no time to relax. More drones were approaching, and the battle was far from over. Seema glanced at Mark. "We can hold them off for now, but we need a clear strategy to finish this," she said. Her voice was calm but determined. Mark nodded, agreed. "Lena's guidance and the A-10 are giving us the advantage, but we need to use it wisely." Lena's mind worked quickly. She identified weak points in the drone's formation and calculated the safest paths for the jets to move. She sent updated signals to the A-10, marking targets and guiding it to intercept the most dangerous attackers. The pilots above the mountains followed her guidance, trusting in her calculations and their own instincts. The A-10 moved aggressively, destroying clusters of drones with precise strikes. The F-16s followed her recommended paths, avoiding attacks and keeping the drones in sight. Lena felt a surge of pride. Humans had skill, courage, and determination, and now those qualities were amplified by technology and strategy. The drones were powerful, but humans were adaptable, creative, and relentless. Suddenly, the drones changed tactics again. They split into smaller, faster groups, attempting to surround the jets. Mark and Seema adjusted, using valleys and ridges to their advantage. The A-10 followed Lena's updated calculations, intercepting the most dangerous drones and protecting the F-16s. The sky was alive with movement, speed, and precision. Every strike was critical. Every maneuver mattered. Lena focused intensely, sending updates every few seconds. She identified potential escape routes and attack paths for the pilots. Her calculations allowed the A-10 to anticipate the drone's movements and respond before they could strike. Humans were proving their skill, courage, and intelligence against the machines. Mark noticed a drone attempting a surprise attack from behind. He pulled up sharply, narrowly avoiding collision. Seema followed closely, banking to cover him. The A-10 pilot fired at the approaching drone, destroying it instantly. Lena's calculations had predicted the maneuver, guiding the heavy fighter to intercept the threat. The pilots adjusted their positions, keeping the drones engaged but under control. The A-10 continued its precise strikes, creating openings for the F-16s to maneuver. Lena felt her heart pounding as she watched the battle unfold. Every calculation, every decision, every movement mattered. Humans had courage, skill, and determination, and now those qualities were amplified by teamwork and technology. The drones moved faster, more aggressively. They attempted to overwhelm the pilots, but the coordination between the F-16s, the A-10, and Lena's guidance created a powerful defense. Explosions lit up the sky as drones were destroyed, their formations broken. The pilots pushed forward, skill and determination guiding them through the danger. Seema noticed a weak point in the remaining drones' formation. "Mark, if we push through here, we can break their attack," she said. Mark nodded. "Agreed, let's go." Lena quickly recalculated the optimal path and sent it to the pilots. The A-10 adjusted to intercept the most dangerous drones, protecting the jets as they moved forward. The F-16s accelerated, following the path Lena had calculated. The drones attempted to adjust, but the pilots were already ahead. With precise maneuvers and coordinated attacks, the drones began to falter. One by one, they were destroyed or forced to retreat. The sky, once full of chaos, began to clear. Mark and Seema adjusted their jets, breathing heavily but relieved. The A-10 had destroyed the majority of the threat, and Lena's guidance had been crucial to the success. The pilots flew in formation, the sky around them calm once more. Lena leaned back in her seat, letting out a deep breath. The quiet flight that had begun hours ago had turned into an intense battle, and humans had prevailed. Skill, courage, and teamwork had won against a powerful and intelligent enemy. Mark looked at Seema. "We survived, thanks to skill and a little help we never even saw." Seema nodded. "Yes, humans are capable of incredible things when we work together." Lena smiled quietly to herself. She had played a small but vital role. Humans' intelligence, creativity, and courage had turned a dangerous situation into a victory. She felt proud, knowing that teamwork and determination had saved the pilots and ensured safety in the sky. The sun shone over the mountains, casting long shadows across the valleys. The F-16s adjusted course and the A-10 flew alongside them, ensuring no remaining threats remained. Lena's calculations were complete and the danger had passed for now. Humans had faced a challenge unlike any before, and they had risen higher, stronger, and smarter than the machines that had threatened them. The sky had finally cleared above the mountains. The roar of engines and the hum of adrenaline that had filled the air for hours was now replaced by a calm, almost peaceful silence. The drones, once fast, aggressive, and intelligent, had been destroyed or forced to retreat. The F-16s, piloted by Mark and Seema, flew steadily in formation, their engines steady and strong. The A-10 followed closely, its pilot keeping watch to ensure no remaining threats remained. Inside the commercial airplane, Lena sat quietly in her seat. Her fingers were still resting on her tablet, but she no longer needed to send calculations or signals. The battle had been won, and her role had helped guide humans to victory. She let out a slow breath, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and pride. Her quiet flight had turned into a battlefield of skill, courage, and determination, and humans had triumphed. Mark glanced over at Seema. "We made it, thanks to the A-10 and a little luck," he said. His voice was calm but full of relief. Seema smiled faintly. "It was more than luck. It was skill, courage, and determination. We survived because we worked together and adapted." Above the mountains, the sun shone brightly, casting warm light across the landscape. The peaks were sharp and jagged, the valleys deep and shadowed, but the danger that had filled the air only hours ago was gone. Mark and Seema allowed themselves a moment to appreciate the view. The sky that had been a battlefield was now open and clear, a reminder of the strength and resilience of humans. Lena watched the scene unfold from her window. She had not been directly in the battle, but her calculations had guided it. Every maneuver, every decision made by the pilots had been influenced by her knowledge and intuition. Humans had faced a machine threat far beyond ordinary skill, and they had survived. Her heart swelled with pride. The commercial plane began to descend toward the airport. The passengers were mostly unaware of the incredible events that had taken place above the mountains. They thought the turbulence and engine noises were ordinary. Lena smiled quietly. Humans often did not see the battles fought in the sky or in secret, but those battles showed what humans were capable of when tested. Mark and Seema adjusted their flight paths, ensuring a safe descent. The A-10 maintained position overhead, ready to intervene if any remaining drones appeared. Hours of skill, focus, and courage had kept them alive, and now the danger had passed. The pilots knew that humans had once again proven their strength, intelligence, and adaptability in the face of extraordinary challenges. Inside the airplane, Lena leaned back in her seat, letting herself relax for the first time. Her mind replayed the events of the past hours. She had gone from a quiet passenger sketching drones in her notebook to a critical participant in a real battle. She had guided skilled pilots, predicted enemy movements, and ensured the survival of humans against a seemingly unstoppable force. Her calculations had been precise, her intuition had been accurate, and her courage had been tested. The airport came into view below the clouds. Lena's plane descended smoothly, guided by the autopilot and experienced crew. She could see the ground clearly, the runways stretching out and the small airport buildings bathed in sunlight. The commercial flight would land safely, but Lena knew that the story above the mountains would be told differently. To most, it would be an ordinary day of military training. To humans who understood, it was a demonstration of skill, courage, and determination. Mark and Seema guided their jets toward the airbase. The A-10 followed, landing carefully after a long and intense flight. Mechanics and ground crew rushed to inspect the aircraft, but the pilots were already reflecting on the battle. They had faced drones that were faster, smarter, and more aggressive than anything they had imagined. Yet humans had triumphed. Their skill, focus, and determination, combined with Lena's guidance, had overcome the threat. Lena's plane touched down smoothly on the runway. The cabin passengers clapped politely, unaware of the incredible events that had unfolded above them. Lena smiled quietly, her notebook still in her lap. She had experienced something extraordinary, but she remained humble. Humans had triumphed because of teamwork, courage, and the ability to adapt. She had played a part, but the pilot's skill had been essential. After landing, Lena stepped off the plane. The air was fresh and cool, carrying the faint smell of fuel and earth. She walked through the airport, reflecting on the events of the day. Her mind was still active, replaying every calculation, every signal, and every maneuver. Humans had faced a machine threat unlike any before, and they had proven that courage, skill, and creativity were stronger than intelligence alone. At the military base, Mark and Seema debriefed with their commanders. They recounted the battle, in detail, describing the drone's speed, intelligence, and aggressive maneuvers. The commanders listened intently, impressed by the skill and precision of the pilots. They knew that the battle had been difficult, but humans had risen to the challenge. "Your coordination and skill were remarkable," one commander said. "We have never seen drones behave like this before, and yet you managed to survive and neutralize the threat. Well done." Mark and Seema exchanged a glance, pride and relief shining in their eyes. "It was a team effort," Mark said. "The A-10 support made a difference, and the calculations we received helped us anticipate the attacks. Humans are capable of adapting and overcoming even the most advanced challenges." At that moment, Lena was quietly introduced to the military team. Her calculations and guidance had been tracked and verified. The commanders praised her for her quick thinking, precision, and courage. Lena felt a wave of pride. She had never expected to play such an important role in a real battle, but her knowledge, skill, and determination had made a difference. "You were crucial in guiding our pilots safely through a highly dangerous situation," one commander said. "Your calculations allowed them to anticipate attacks, avoid collisions, and survive against drones far more advanced than expected. Humans are truly remarkable, and your work proves it." Lena nodded, humbled by the recognition. "I was only helping," she said softly. "The pilot's skill and courage made the real difference. Humans have the ability to adapt, think quickly, and overcome challenges. I just tried to support them." Mark and Seema smiled. "Your support was the difference between survival and disaster," Seema said. "Humans working together using skill, intuition, and courage can face any challenge. Today proved it." The sky above the mountains was now calm and clear. The sun shone brightly, casting long shadows across the valleys and peaks. The battle was over, but the story of human skill, courage, and determination would be remembered. Humans had faced a machine threat unlike any before, and they had triumphed. The combination of bravery, intelligence, and teamwork had proven that humans were capable of incredible achievements. Lena returned to her notebook, sketching drones once again. This time, however, her sketches carried new ideas inspired by the battle. She thought about how humans could continue to innovate, adapt, and rise above challenges. Humans had skill, courage, and creativity, and when those qualities were combined, they could achieve greatness. Mark and Seema looked out over the mountains from the airbase. They had survived a test of skill, courage, and determination. They had faced intelligent machines and prevailed. Their hearts were full of pride, knowing that humans could rise to any challenge. The day ended quietly, but the impact of the events would last far longer. Lena had played her part, the pilots had shown their skill, and humans had proven their ability to overcome even the most advanced threats. The sky, once a battlefield, was now a symbol of human ingenuity, courage, and determination. As Lena walked away from the airbase, she looked up at the blue sky. She felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. Humans had faced a dangerous and intelligent threat, and they had triumphed. Teamwork, skill, courage, and quick thinking had proven stronger than any machine. Mark and Seema returned to their quarters, reflecting on the battle. They had been tested in ways they had never imagined. The drones had been fast, precise, and intelligent, but humans had skill, creativity, and courage. Humans had proven that, when they work together, they can face any challenge, overcome any danger, and rise higher than ever before. Lena smiled quietly to herself as she considered the future. Humans had triumphed today, but she knew there would be new challenges ahead. The sky was vast, full of opportunity, and full of danger. Yet humans had the ability to adapt, to innovate, and to rise above any threat. That knowledge filled her with hope and determination. The quiet flight had begun hours ago, but it had become a story of courage, skill, and triumph. Humans had faced a dangerous enemy and prevailed. Lena, Mark, and Seema had all played their parts, proving that humans were capable of greatness. The sun set behind the mountains, casting golden light across the peaks and valleys. The air was calm, the sky peaceful, and the battle a memory. Humans had triumphed. They had faced danger, relied on skill, courage, and creativity, and emerged victorious. The story of the battle above the mountains would be remembered as a reminder that humans, when tested, rise higher than any machine, stronger than any challenge, and braver than any fear.